Is the result on which we will be working today. How to get this result, wherever I'm clicking, a new ball is created at that point. Okay, and this thing is known as spawning of ball. Fine. So this is what we're going to learn today. How can we create a 3D effect like this? Fine. So let's, without wasting any time, let's dive into Unity and check out how can we do this, how can we make this thing. The first thing that we require is a platform on which we can make the balls fall. Okay, ball spawn. So for that we are going to define a 3D cube. Let's adjust the size of this 3D cube in such a way that it can be I want it to look like a platform, a flat platform. So I think this much size is fine, right? Okay, so this is how it is going to look like. Now let's impart a color to this platform by creating a material. For now I'm going to impart it a red color. I think that should be fine. Okay, yeah, that is looking great. Now what else do we require? We require a 3D sphere. Fine, and let's move it here. Okay, so that it can be visible to us, right? Okay, this is the game view. This is how it is going to look like in the game, and this is the scene view. Now here, let's rename this sphere to ball. So from in this property inspector, we can rename this ball. So now it is, after renaming the ball, you need to hit enter so that the name can be renamed here. Okay, now we are going to add some physics to this ball by adding a rigid body component. So now what is going to happen when we will pull this ball up, it is going to fall down. Okay, so now what we want is, we want to spawn the ball in the starting of the game. So for doing that, the first thing that we require is an empty object. So let's create an empty object first, and I'm going to rename it as what should we give the name? Let's rename it as rename it to game manager. Okay, so that's what is the name I'm going to give to the empty object. Okay, I'm hit enter, and then what you need to do is, we need to bring it here. Okay, and let's give an icon to this empty object so that it can be visible to us in the scene area. So for doing that, just click on this small box over here in the property inspector, and you'll get to see these icons. Fine, then select one of the icons. So now this is the empty object, and I want to see it. Reset, and I want to see it right on the top of this sphere. Okay, let's shift it somewhat downwards. Yeah, this is fine. Yeah, and I want to see it right on the top of this sphere. Okay, so I think this much is fine. Now what we need to do is, we need to create another empty object with name okay, this is a spawn point. Actually, this is the point from where we want to spawn the ball. Okay, so let's rename it to spawn point. And the second thing is an empty object we are going to create which is going to work as a game manager. Okay, so that's to this I'm going to give a name, that is game manager. Fine. So now we have got two empty object on this scene, and the name of one is spawn point, the name of the other one is game manager. Now we are going to create a script over here with name. What should be the name? That okay, let's name it as game controller, because it is going to control the whole game. So let's name it as game controller, and I'm going to apply this game controller script on this game manager. Okay, let's open this game controller script and do some coding. This is why we guys are doing this Unity, just because we are writing the code and we are getting the result. We are writing the code and we are getting the result. But in Python, what happens ki we have to write code, 1,000 lines of code in order to get a particular result. So that's why it is going to make it is going to be very interesting, and it is very interesting, and besides it is going to develop a sense of how coding works in you guys. Okay, so that is the reason we guys are doing this Unity. Now what we need to do is we need to define a game object. Fine. So for defining a game object, the keyword is game object. Remember these things. Okay, you need to remember these terms if you really want to code big games in this Unity. The second is for transform. Okay, and the spawn point, this is the variable that I will be using for defining the spawn point from where I want the ball to spawn, and this is the variable that I'm going to use for the ball, the game object. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to create another function, a new function, and we want the how can we so this is the function that we are going to make use of for spawning the ball. Okay, now there is a term called instantiate. Okay, for instantiating your things, we can make use of this instantiate, and then we are going to pass, the first thing that we need to pass is a game object, and that is of course the ball, and then we need to define the position from where we want the ball to spawn from. Okay, so it is of course a spawn point, but for fetching the position, we need to write down a spawn point dot position. Okay, so this is going to give us a position of the spawn point, and then what kind of movement do we require. So there is a term called Quaternion for the same. Quaternion, remember this, please remember the spelling of this, because sometimes it happens that we make mistakes in writing the codes and spellings of the codes. Okay, so this is Quaternion. So we have passed 3 different parameters over here. Now let's save the changes and come back on Unity. Now here what we are going to do is we are going to create a new folder, and we are going to name it as prefab. Okay, let's rename it as prefab. Now here inside this prefab folder, we are going to drag and drop this ball over here. Okay, so that we can reuse it again. Fine, that is the reason we have created this prefab folder for. Now we are going to select this ball from here, and we need to deactivate this ball. Okay, from this property inspector. In this property inspector, if you'll click on this checkbox, the ball will get automatically deactivated. Okay, now what you need to do is you need to drag and drop the ball from the prefabs into the ball variable of game manager, and you will come in this game manager. Okay, we are not able to see that ball variable option. Why we are not able to see that? The type of namespace. Okay, the spelling of this transform is not correct. It should be transform like this. Let's save the changes and see whether we'll be able to see the required variables in this script. Yes, we are able to see the required variables. See, so in this ball, you need to drag and drop this ball over here. Okay, and for this spawn point, you need to drag this spawn point and drop it over here. How simple these things are, right? Now what you need to do is we need to come here in the script again, and inside this start function we need to call this spawn ball function. Okay, because in order to call any function that you create which cannot execute automatically, which do not get executed automatically, like start and update, you need to call this function. Either you can call it inside this update, or you can call this inside this start. In start function, what happens that the function is called only once, and in update function, the function or the things are called for every frame. So instead of passing it inside this update function, we are going to write it down inside this start function. Let's save the changes. Now let's see what's going to happen if we'll hit this play button. Okay, I think we have dropped this ball inside this variable. We need not to drop this ball because this ball is, we have already disabled this ball. Instead of this, what we are going to do is we need to drop this ball, okay, inside this box over here. Let's remove this component first. I'm going to add this game controller script again on this game manager. Let's see. Okay, this is how I'm going to add it. Now I'm going to add I need to add this ball. Okay, and for spawn point I'm going to add this one. Let's see whether we'll be able to see the changes or not. So now we are able to see the changes. Okay, so you need to add this ball that which we have added in the prefab folder. Okay, now what we can do is, so the ball is spawning, right? The ball is spawning at this from this spawn point. We need to come again on this C# script, and let's learn how can we spawn a ball when we press any key on our keyboard. So for doing that, inside this update function, we are going to make use of an if loop, and if input dot get key down. I think you guys know about this function very well because we used it in the previous lecture. So the students who haven't seen the previous lecture of mine, please do check that out. Okay, so this is the whole code: input dot get key down, key code dot space. So what do we want when we press the space bar key should happen? We want to see the ball spawning. So we can copy this code from here and we can put it here, right? And we are going to comment out this code. Let's save the changes and see what's going to happen when we'll hit this play button. And if we hit this spacebar key, so this is what we are going to see as a result. Now let's do one thing. Let's try and tilt it downwards. So how can we do that? By changing this rotation to -10. Okay, that's how we can tilt it down. Now what is going to happen if we'll hit this play button and then press spacebar key. So the ball is going to come down like this. Okay. Now what else do we want is we want that wherever we click through our mouse, the ball should spawn at that point. So for doing that, what we can do is we can copy this code from here, and for giving the command from our mouse, instead of using this get key down property, the property that we can use is get mouse button down. Okay, this is the property that we can use, and here we are going to pass 0 if we want to give the command through the left click. Okay, now inside this, what we are going to pass is, first of all, we need to fetch the position of the mouse, right? We need to fetch the position of the mouse. So for the same, we are going to define a vector3 variable. So this is a variable that we are going to use for fetching the position of the mouse, and input dot mouse position. This is the one that is going to give us the mouse position. So these codes you have to remember, okay, if you really want to become a good coder. Now we want to fetch the position of the z-axis. Okay, so for that, what we can do is mouse pose dot z, okay, equals to, we are going to pass a value ourselves. Suppose let's pass 10f for now. We're going to keep it hardcore. Okay, vector3. Now for spawn position, we're going to use a variable spawn pos, and camera dot main dot screen. So this code is going to give you the coordinates of the mouse on the real world axis. Remember this thing, mouse pose. So this is a world that you're seeing here. We call it as a world, okay, this scene area. So wherever the mouse is, this is going to give you the spawn position. Okay, this thing is going to give you the mouse position, and at that position we want the ball to spawn. So we are going to save it in this spawn pos variable. The position, we are going to save it in this variable. Now let's instantiate the action. So we can copy this code from here and we can put it here. In place of spawn point dot position, we are going to make use of this variable spawn pos. Okay, because this is a point from which we want to see the spawn happening. Okay, now I think this code is fine. Okay, let's see what are we going to get as a result. Let's save the changes and hit this play button. So if suppose I click here, so I will get to see this ball. Okay, so that's how you can get different balls, right? See, now hit this spacebar key, so you will get to see balls coming out from this point. Okay, because this is the point where the spawn position, the empty object is kept. The spawn point, this spawn point is there. Okay, now what else do we want? We want that when these balls collide with this sphere over here, we want them to change their color. Okay, let's put this spawn point somewhere here. Let's see what are we going to get as a result. I think now it is fine. Okay, so we need to detect the collisions for the same, right? And I think in the previous lecture we already had discussed about the collisions. So for detecting the collisions, there is a by default function present in this Visual Studio named on collision enter. Okay, this is a function that I can make use of, and then we need to pass a variable. So this is a variable which we can pass over here. Now let's begin defining the coding. So first of all we need to get the component, right? So for doing that we can write down get component, and what is the thing that we require for getting the color or material color? Renderer. Okay, renderer. After that dot material dot color. Okay, so that's how I can uh, check the color. That's how I can check the color. Now what is the color to which I want, what is the color from white I want the ball to get changed to? I want the ball's color to change to, let's make it green for now. Okay, I want to change it to green when it comes in contact with the floor. So that's how you can define everything. Now let's see what are we going to get as a result. Let's see the changes. Okay, right now we are getting a compilation error. What is the error? Unexpected symbol material. Okay, so okay, we have not placed a dot over here. We need to place a dot, small dot. Let's save the changes and see what are we going to get as a result over here. The color of the ball is not changing, right? We want to see the color of the ball changing. What are we missing? Let's check that out. Are we missing something? This is fine. This is also fine. Get component on renderer material dot color dot green. Okay. What is the mistake that we are doing? So in order to if you want to change the color, if you want to see the color of the balls changing, we need to define another script for the same. Let's create another script. Let's name it as ball controller. Okay. Now let's open this script, and here in this update part, or outside this update part, let's define a function. And the function that we are going to define here is private void on collision, right? So this we had already studied in the previous lecture. So in order to detect the collision, we can make use of this function, which is called automatically. Okay, so this is a function which we can use, right? And here inside this function we need to fetch the component, right? So get component renderer is a property that we can use for fetching the material color, right? So in material we store all the colors. Now we want the color to change to green, so that's how we can code this thing. Let's see what's gonna happen. Let's first of all we need to apply this ball controller on the ball, right? So for doing that we can put this on this ball, okay, or else, okay, let's see what's gonna happen if we'll play the game. No, the ball's color is not getting changed. Why it is not getting changed? That's what we need to check out. And if we'll, let's apply this C# script on this ball that is there in the prefab. So game controller is the script, name of the script. Okay, and here game control, no, not game controller, it is ball controller, right? This is a script. Let's see what's gonna happen if we'll play the game. So now the ball's color is changing. So that's how you can make the balls the color change. And these are some of the codes that we learned in this lecture. Please do share these lectures with your friends, with your colleagues, and your groups, whatever groups you're a part of, so that more and more people can learn coding free of cost. Thank you very much for watching this lecture.